Okay, and now for the next part of our program. We are really lucky to have with us Amanda Wulz, living here in Santa Fe. Amanda is originally from Florida. Her family now lives in Israel. And I'm going to let Amanda tell you about herself and share her personal story with us all. So without further ado, Amanda Wulz.
So thank you for the introduction, Devorah. Thank you for putting this whole thing together. I'm very nervous speaking about this today. I've never talked about my story in front of a large group of people, but when I was asked to do it, I felt like it was pretty important. So just, bear with my nerves a little bit. So about 19 years ago, I was a senior in high school. My family often had dinner together every night, and this was around the Passover holiday, and my parents at dinner wanted to just let me and my brother know that next year for Passover we were going to be in Israel, which was a little strange for us. We often went to Israel. My dad is Israeli and grew up there, but we usually would go in the summer times and spend the summers there, and so it was a little different, but that being said, I ended up having a very, very strong reaction kind of out of nowhere. I started screaming and crying and begging them not to go, saying something terrible was going to happen. I didn't understand what was happening to myself. My parents were like, whoa, wow, okay, so if you don't want to go, you don't have to. And so I stayed back, and the next year they went on the trip to Israel. And I was in school in Boston, and one morning I was woken up by the phone call of a parent from my high school asking me if I was okay. And I didn't know what they were talking about and said, yeah, I'm fine. They quickly got off the phone, and then, that was a little strange. I had the TV on, and it was on CNN, and on the bottom of the television there was a ticker going, and I saw it read Tel Aviv suicide bombing. And I knew that my family was doing like a 3-day trip to Tel Aviv, and that they were there at that point in time. So I quickly, maybe it was already a little weird, put 2 and 2 together, tried to get in contact with my family, and was soon alerted that something had happened. There was a suicide bombing at a restaurant that my father and my brother were eating lunch at one day. And my brother was sitting, if you've been to Israel, you know that before any store or restaurant, there's often a soldier sitting there asking you to open your bags. And there was a soldier sitting there asking people to open their bags, and he asked this one guy to open his backpack, but that was the detonator for a bomb of 30 pounds of shrapnel. And my brother was sitting about 6 feet away with his back towards the bomber, and it went off. And my brother was severely injured and blown onto my father. He shielded my dad, who ended up surviving. He didn't die right away. He was taken to Ichilov Hospital in Tel Aviv, and after about a month of ups and downs and big roller coasters, he ended up succumbing to his injuries and dying. Sorry. And after he died, a lot of us, family members and friends, gathered in a kind of a hotel room nearby. And someone in the group said, you have to look at this. And they turned on the television, and there was a news report showing a parade in the streets of Gaza, where men, women, and children were celebrating the death of my brother with banners of his face, with captions that translated to 2 birds, 1 stone, meaning American and Jewish. And, you know, this type of barbarism is the exact type of barbarism we're up against today, that we're seeing today, that is so indigestible to so many of us. I think a lot of, you know, it's really natural for people to want to make sense of things that don't make sense. Sorry. And to try and make meaning out of things that you really can't. You know, I'm here to talk to you today about how we move forward after really devastating events that cripple us and have us overwhelmed with grief and sorrow. I think, you know, whether or not we have a really personal connection, a really personal story to what's happened, we're feeling the grief. And we, you know, the first step in really moving through your grief is recognizing it and allowing it to really be there. I think especially those of us who don't have really personal stories in connection to the events of October 7th, we can become channels for grief and allow the grief, the collective grief that we're all feeling, to really move through us. And, you know, as a Jew, we kind of have a leg up with grief in a way. The Torah always commands us to choose life. And, you know, as a Jewish person going through extreme emotion, extreme trauma, extreme grief, we have that like North Star. Even when and that can even allow us to totally lose ourselves in our grief. In a safe way, we have that anchor always pulling us to life. So even when we're drowning and we really don't know which way is which, you can trust that you still have that. And so, again, the way we move through this is first allowing it through our bodies and feeling it, really feeling it. And then once we allow that space for it to be there, our bodies can start, our nervous systems can start to relax a little bit and feel safer and safer. Just allowing emotions to be there allows for some nervous system calming down. And then once you start calming down, you can start to process and move through things, you know, gently, slowly at first, but you can start. And I work with people working with the mind and the body to process things together, and finding that that's a really effective way to move through this stuff is, you know, kind of using your mind to recognize the emotions and using also your mind to dialogue with these emotions and figure out what they're trying to tell you, what kind of information they're trying to give you, what kind of answers or help they're trying to provide. And then moving through it by meeting that with action, bringing, you know, whatever you can do to satisfy this want of this emotion. What is this emotion asking of you? And what can I do to meet it and satisfy it? Then, you know, so dealing with grief and processing trauma really starts with the self. You know, you just have to start there. But once you continue to work on the self and move things through the body and create more safety in the body to have all these big emotions, you can start to slowly turn that focus outward into maybe first your friends and family, and then to your community, and maybe larger community like our Jewish community. Thinking about taking your intense emotions and what are they driving you to do? Are they driving you to do something righteous? Or maybe just having more chesed and kindness in your interactions with people. And so when we move that energy outward, we start to really, really move it and process it. And we engage with people and create connections and spirituality and, really, and tikkun olam. Another little kind of phrase I wanted to bring up is ahavat chinam, which is about Jews really coming together and loving each other. And so like back in the day of the temple being destroyed, some schools of thought believe that the temple was destroyed because we didn't have ahavat chinam. We were really split in our ideology, in our beliefs, and just really in the ways we interacted with each other and came together. We couldn't really come together very well. And some people believe that events with Hamas happened because of a lack of ahavat chinam. But to see the outpouring of the ahavat chinam afterwards is, the most moving thing ever. And really, I think, creating a lot of miracles. And so, today our challah is ahavat chinam. We have all these different communities from Santa Fe coming together and creating this beautiful event. Yeah. So that's what I want to leave you with. And thank you for letting me share my story. Oh yeah, does anyone have any questions?
Do you want to share?
Yeah.
Okay.
It kind of felt like a natural one. Forgot to go there.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so, as an example of taking action and doing something with your grief, after my brother died, our family created a foundation in my brother's name to combat terrorism, first in smaller ways. We first created a curriculum, an anti-bullying curriculum that could be adopted in public schools, and then a more focused curriculum on recognizing radicalism, like an anti-terrorism curriculum. And more recently, we're really focused on what's going on in Israel and helping out where we can. So we have, at first there were so many, talk about ahavat chinam, there were so many soldiers that came and volunteered in Israel, which was amazing, but created a major shortage of supplies. And so we bought bulletproof vests and fireproof gear, and they had to use old tanks, and so they didn't have the proper cameras, so we bought cameras, and then personal items, toothpaste and underwear and sleeping mats, and now warm food, because they're creating military bases out of schools and places that aren't really military bases and don't have the facilities to really take care of the soldiers. So we're doing that in Israel. And I guess my vocation is kind of a whole devotion to helping others through really intense, terrible times. So, yeah.